Extreme mass in a black hole almost never comes from an equally extreme birth. That is the fracture that unsettles intuition. We instinctively assume that if a black hole is enormously massive, then there must once have been an even more monstrous star. It sounds logical. A gigantic star burns through its fuel, collapses under its own weight, and leaves behind an abyss proportional to its size. But this is precisely where the universe imposes a brutal constraint. Beyond a certain threshold, a star does not quietly collapse into a larger black hole. Instead, it can nearly destroy itself completely, scattering into space the very matter that should have become darkness. Mass, then, stops being a simple inheritance. It becomes a clue. For a long time, stellar black holes were described as final remains. A star lives, burns, swells, explodes, collapses. The black hole appears as the endpoint of a cosmic biography. But gravitational waves have transformed that image into something far more restless. We no longer observe isolated black holes alone. We listen to collisions. We hear pairs of abysses orbiting one another, losing energy, drawing closer, accelerating, and finally merging into a single object. Inside that fleeting signal, often shorter than a heartbeat, hides an uncomfortable question. Are we really witnessing the deaths of stars, or are we witnessing the remnants of previous deaths recombining? The latest catalog used in the study, the fourth LIGO, Virgo, and KAGR8 transient catalog, contains 153 black hole mergers analyzed as a population rather than as isolated episodes. And it is precisely when those events are viewed together that the story changes. The researchers do not find a single orderly family, but two distinct behaviors. On one side are lighter black holes, with properties consistent with the classical origin story. Massive stars collapsing and leaving behind a dark remnant. On the other side emerge heavier black holes, spinning faster and with more chaotic orientations, as though they no longer carry the clean signature of a single star, but the turbulent memory of a history shaped by repeated impacts. That distinction lies at the core of the study published in Nature Astronomy and highlighted by the universities involved. Spin is the most revealing part of all this. A black hole is not merely compressed mass, it is also rotation. And that rotation behaves like a dynamic scar. If two stars are born together, evolve together, and die forming two black holes in a relatively orderly binary, then it is plausible that their spins retain some coherence with the orbit. Not always, but enough to leave a recognizable trend. But if two black holes meet inside a crowded environment, with no shared history, after being scattered, exchanged, captured, and accelerated through repeated gravitational encounters, the geometry changes. Their spin axes can point in random directions. The final orbit may be the last chapter of a brawl rather than the outcome of a long coexistence. This is the detail that destabilizes the simplest idea. A massive black hole does not necessarily imply a gigantic progenitor star. It may instead point to a lineage. It may be a second-generation object, or even a third-generation one, born when a previous black hole merged with another, and the resulting object remained trapped in an environment dense enough to encounter yet another companion. Every merger adds mass, but it does not completely erase the past. The new black hole preserves a rotation shaped by the previous collision. It preserves a recoil velocity. It preserves the possibility of being ejected, or of remaining imprisoned within the stellar cluster that created it. The decisive question therefore becomes environmental. Where can such a chain occur without immediately breaking apart? The answer points toward dense stellar clusters. Not simply because they contain many stars, but because they are gravitational laboratories where the average distance between objects shrinks dramatically. In a stellar neighborhood like that of the Sun, close encounters between stars or stellar remnants are rare on human timescales and even across many astronomical ones. Inside a globular cluster, or within the compact core of a young and massive cluster, the situation is entirely different. Hundreds of thousands of stars may be bound together by the same collective gravity. The most massive bodies tend to drift toward the center. Black holes, heavier than ordinary stars, slowly sink into the densest region. There, gravity does not build calm systems. It reshuffles them. Inside this crowded core, a pair of black holes may form not because two stars were born together, but because three or more objects meet and exchange energy. The lighter object is expelled, while the two heavier ones remain bound. Then another encounter tightens the orbit. Another makes it more eccentric. At every step, the pair loses or exchanges energy until it enters the regime where gravitational wave emission takes over. From that moment on, the two black holes no longer need outside disturbances. Their own dance curves space-time, drains orbital energy away, and drags them toward merger. A larger black hole is born. But the story does not end there. If the resulting object is not hurled away by gravitational recoil, it can return to the cluster's center. It can become prey and predator at the same time. It can begin again. Hierarchical merger is exactly this, not a single birth, but a stepwise construction. The first step may still be stellar. A massive star dies and forms a black hole. But the second step is dynamical. That black hole encounters another. They merge. The third step becomes even less likely, though not impossible, if the environment is compact and deep enough to retain the result. Every step makes the object heavier but also more suspicious. Because eventually it enters a mass range that direct stellar death struggles to explain. This is where one of the most elegant and merciless ideas in stellar astrophysics appears: pair instability. When a very massive star reaches extreme temperatures in its core, light itself can transform into particle-antiparticle pairs. Radiation pressure, which until then helped support the star against gravity, weakens. The core contracts. The temperature rises even further. Nuclear reactions become violently unstable. In certain mass ranges, instead of leaving behind a larger black hole, the star explodes so catastrophically that it disperses almost everything. It is as though nature imposes a forbidden zone. Not every final mass is available to black holes born directly from stars. The study interprets the data as strong evidence for a lower boundary to this gap around 45 solar masses, with a lighter population that does not cross that threshold and a more chaotic population that does. That changes the meaning of extreme mass. If we find a black hole in this difficult region, we should not immediately imagine an impossible mother star. We should ask whether we are looking at a recycled object. A black hole too massive to be the clean corpse of a single star may instead be the product of two earlier corpses. And if its spin is rapid, tilted, and misaligned with the orbit, the case becomes even stronger. Mass tells us something does not fit. Spin suggests that what does not fit may be a chain of mergers. Gravitational waves, then, are not merely the sound of the final instant. They are a method for performing archaeology on objects that emit no light. There is a paradox in all this. Black holes are often described as objects without memory because, according to classical general relativity, a stationary black hole is defined by only a few properties: mass, spin, and electric charge. Yet those very properties, when measured across an entire population, become a form of statistical memory. A single event may be ambiguous. One signal may contain uncertainties. One mass may be explained in multiple ways. But 153 mergers do not speak like 153 isolated anecdotes. They speak like a crowd. And within that crowd, different accents emerge. Some objects appear to be direct children of stellar evolution. Others seem assembled, as though they had been built inside gravitational workshops where the raw material was already black holes. This idea blurs the meaning of the word birth. For a star, being born means igniting. For a first-generation black hole, it may mean collapse. But for a hierarchical black hole, birth is no longer an adequate word. Assembly would be more accurate. Its body is the sum of previous events. Its spin is the result of geometries that were never aligned. Its mass includes a loss, because during merger part of the energy is radiated away as gravitational waves. Two black holes do not produce a final black hole whose mass is the perfect arithmetic sum of the two. A fraction is carried away by spacetime itself, in the form of ripples crossing the universe. Growth, then, comes at a cost. And that cost determines the fate of the chain. When two black holes merge, the emission of gravitational waves can be asymmetric. The newborn black hole receives a kick, a recoil. If that kick is too strong, the object is expelled from the cluster and the sequence ends. But if the cluster is massive enough, compact enough, gravitationally deep enough, the black hole remains trapped inside. This constraint is crucial. It is not enough for black holes to meet. They must also remain available for the next encounter. Hierarchical mergers require density, time, and a kind of cosmic trap capable of retaining its own most violent products. At this point, the original image reverses itself. The enormous black hole is not necessarily the final monument of an enormous star. It may instead be a collective structure. An object born from the dynamics of an entire stellar community. The cluster is not the backdrop of the story. It is the engine. Without that environment, two already formed black holes might never meet. Without repeated encounters, their orbit would never tighten enough. Without a deep gravitational well, the resulting product would be ejected. Final mass, therefore, speaks not only of the star that may once have existed at the beginning. It speaks of the density of the environment, the history of exchanges, the probability of collisions, the cluster's ability to retain what it creates. The deepest consequence concerns the way we read the invisible universe. Before gravitational waves, many stellar black holes were inferred through light stolen from a companion star or through their effects on extremely hot gas. They were objects observed only because they betrayed their presence by interacting with something luminous. But the mergers revealed by LIGO, Virgo, and KAGRA need no light. They are dark masses announcing themselves by deforming geometry itself. This allows us to discover systems that would otherwise remain silent. And precisely because they do not depend on light, they reveal a population deeper, perhaps older, perhaps more dynamic than we had imagined. There is also a bridge toward an even larger mystery. Between stellar black holes and the supermassive black holes at the centers of galaxies, there should exist an intermediate zone populated by objects containing hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of solar masses. Finding them is difficult. Explaining them is even harder. Repeated mergers inside clusters do not by themselves solve the origin of galactic monsters, but they do reveal a genuine mechanism for bottom-up growth. A black hole can grow larger not only by consuming gas, but by merging with other black holes. If this happens enough times, in environments extreme enough, the boundary between a heavy stellar black hole and an intermediate mass black hole becomes far less rigid. The most fascinating aspect is that the study does not attempt to turn every massive black hole into a hierarchical product. The lighter population remains. Massive stars continue to die. Stellar collapse remains a fundamental factory of black holes. But now that factory is no longer the only one. Alongside the stellar production line appears a second workshop, more chaotic, rarer, and far more violent. In one, mass is inherited from a star. In the other, mass is accumulated through encounters. In one, the black hole is a remnant. In the other, it is an archive of collisions. So when we say a black hole is enormous, we may actually be asking the wrong question. We should not ask only which star created it. We should ask how many times what composes it has already died. We should ask whether that darkness is young or recycled, whether it was born from a single collapse or from a sequence of mergers, whether its spin is the calm axis of a simple story or the disordered rotation of a crowded past. Extreme mass therefore stops being a final measurement. It becomes a trace. And within that trace lies an almost vertiginous idea. Some of the largest black holes we hear today were not born giants. They were built, piece by piece, from other black holes. If you've made it this far, it means you love curiosity as much as we do. If you enjoyed this journey, leave a like, write a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support what we do. Your presence truly makes a difference. Until the next exploration.